victims were Ontario residents. They were both male and female, between the ages of 16 and 36 years of age.
The details becoming more distressing by the day. A Mississauga man accused of helping potentially vulnerable people end their lives, allegedly sending substances to those at risk of self-harm. The new charges and the new questions. Good evening. We want to warn you the information in this case is both disturbing and challenging to comprehend. Possible links to dozens of deaths.
Behind each number is a person and a very real human tragedy. This investigation becoming more international in its reach. We have extensive coverage tonight, beginning with CTV's Beth McDonnell. Beth.
Raheem, this was a highly anticipated news conference. Police told us now there are alleged victims in Toronto, York Region, Peel Region, Durham Region, Waterloo, London, and Thunder Bay. 57-year-old Kenneth Law now faces 14 charges of counseling and aiding suicide, tied to 14 victims in Ontario who lost their lives.
We offer our sincerest condolences to the loved ones of those we have lost due to these unimaginable set of circumstances.
Today, police announced 12 of the deaths are connected to new charges. The first two charges laid back in May. The victims, both male and female, are all between 16 and 36 years of age. It's alleged Law sent packages from a Mississauga post office, many which contained sodium nitrite, a powder used to cure meat but is deadly in high concentrations, and other items which can be used for self-harm like masks and head wraps. A joint task force involving 11 provincial agencies is now warning about 5 companies. They are I'm Time Cuisine, Ambuca, Academic, Escape Mode, and Ice Mac.
If you have received a package from any of the companies, if you or anyone you know has spoken to Kenneth Law about self-harm, or if you have noticed payment or transactions related to any one of these companies, please contact us.
Police say they are looking into all the packages believed to be sent by Law, more than 1,200 to more than 40 countries, but not all the possible deaths worldwide. Britain's National Crime Agency says 272 people ordered products in a 2-year period, with 88 customers dying. Here, officers began examining the first case with sodium nitrite as the cause of death in late March, early April. While they say they know where the sodium nitrite came from, the motivation behind this massive and complex investigation has not been revealed.
We're actively still investigating that, but it's not something that I can speak to today.
Law remains in custody. Police were asked if any other person has come up in this investigation. Police say they are looking at it from a broad scope and can't give specific details. Reporting live outside Peel Regional Police Headquarters, I'm Beth McDonnell.
Thank you, Beth. The death toll possibly connected to products sold by Kenneth Law continues to climb, a number that goes well beyond the 14 criminal cases in Ontario. CTV's John Woodward has been speaking to family members of the alleged victims. John, how are they taking this news?
Michelle, we talked to a number of those family members, and the word they used is astonishing. After all, this was a case that began with a handful of deaths potentially connected to Kenneth Law of just a few months ago, and now has ballooned to over 100.
Every individual death is a tragedy, and the numbers we're seeing here just defy belief.
A tragedy David Parfitt felt up close. His son Tom took his own life in a British hotel. The substance Tom used was sodium nitrite. The source, according to a coroner's inquest, was a website run by Mississauga's Kenneth Law. And Parfitt says with every new death reported, he can't imagine so many others also going through the pain he felt.
It's just incredible to think the number of deaths that man could have been responsible for.
On Tuesday, police in Ontario added 12 criminal charges to the 2 charges Law was already facing to make 14 counts of aiding and abetting suicide in locations across the province. Last week, British police confirmed they have started a criminal investigation into 88 deaths in the past 2 years. On Tuesday, police in Ireland confirmed to CTV News that following information received from and at the request of the Canadian authorities, An Garda Síochána has carried out a number of welfare checks in this jurisdiction. In a small number of cases, An Garda Síochána has identified that the persons subject to the welfare check were deceased. Added up with other cases across the world sourced through media, family members, and various authorities, CTV News can say the total deaths that may be linked to Kenneth Law's products is at least 112. Many of those deaths have not sparked a criminal investigation, including at least one in Canada. 21-year-old Jaden took his own life more than 2 years ago.
All of the attention is from the Peel Police to residents of Ontario. What about the rest of the country? It makes me wonder how many other people are in my position trying to get attention from my police.
Others calling for an even bigger review of the pro-suicide online forum that allegedly promoted Law's products, one that CTV News is not naming.
I still don't understand why we, and we being an international community, allow people access to a forum that encourages vulnerable people like my son to understand how to kill themselves and then provides the methods to do so.
Parfit feeling if any part of this had been prevented years ago, his son might still be alive. And one reason these numbers keep climbing is because all of these sales were done online on websites that could be accessed from all over the world. And the delay we're seeing is police just catching up with the speed of the internet. Now, some countries, including New Zealand, have blocked that pro-suicide forum we mentioned. We've been looking for anything similar to happen in Canada, and we haven't heard anything like that yet. Reporting live, I'm John Woodward. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, John. And our coverage of this story continues online. Visit ctvnewstoronto.ca and download the CTV News app.
Coming up, the Midway mishap, a scary experience at the X. The safety probe into how and why a ride goer wound up in hospital, and what guests can expect at the CNE moving forward. But first, just in time for back to school, is trouble brewing on the labor front.
Despite commitments to keep kids in class, it turns out that might be easier said than done. And if you have an elementary-age child, you'll want to listen closely. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live with more tonight. Siobhan.
Well, a strike by public elementary school teachers is still a long way off. It's still a potential strike at this point. But today, the union has taken the first step down that path.
Patience is wearing thin for the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario.
After a full year of bargaining without sufficient progress, ETFO is proceeding with an application for conciliation.
A referee to help the union and government find common ground at the bargaining table. An early benchmark for potential job action or strike down the road.
I think it's disappointing that families have to have this anxiety when we just proved that there's a credible framework that works for the union, for the employer, the school board, and for the government.
A framework public high school teachers have agreed to. Bargain until October 27th. If they can't negotiate a new contract, go to binding arbitration.
Once again, this government is trying to be a bully, and they're trying to impose someone else's agreement, someone else's terms and conditions on our members.
The ETFO president says their members have unique concerns around issues like class size and violence.
Over 34% of our members said they've engaged in an evacuation of their classroom because of the violence. That is not going to be resolved through an arbitration process.
The education minister doesn't buy it.
It is the exact same remedy, the approach we take for outstanding issues with nurses, with doctors, with public high school teachers, but apparently not for public elementary teachers.
Parents of young students aren't panicking about what might be ahead.
I'm content to let it play out. I'm on the side of the teachers. Really, they want what's best for the kids.
They're teaching our kids. We need to make sure that they're well taken care of and adequately compensated.
We support the teachers and the efforts that they've made over the past couple of years, but it's also summer, so we're taking it one day at a time.
ETFO members start voting on whether or not to support a strike in mid-September.
So many things would have to happen to get to the potential strike position. First, ETFO members are voting. Those strike votes, they continue to mid-October. Those would have to wrap up. Then there'd have to be a declaration by the conciliator that the two sides are too far apart and a deal can't be reached. Then the union would have to file paperwork, a no board report it's called. That would trigger a 17-day countdown to some sort of job action. That could be a work to rule campaign with teachers not doing all of their work or a full-blown strike. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Michelle, back to you.
Good to know. Thank you, Siobhan. And just ahead, the tug-of-war between preserving protected land and getting new homes built. The controversy continuing to grow in the parcel that could be pulled back under the Greenbelt rules.
Well, let's take a live look outside on this Tuesday evening. A bit of a mixed bag in terms of conditions today as we look toward the end of August. Well, the big question is a warm-up on the way as we bring in Lindsay Morrison for a look at the current conditions? That's what everybody wants to know, Lindsay.
Well, Raheem, there is a big warm-up on the way as we make our way toward the long weekend. Ahead of that, a couple of chilly days and a little bit of wet weather. That's going to arrive tonight. We can already see it here on the satellite and radar. Rain impacting Bruce County, Grey County, and in through parts of Muskoka. Winds right now are fairly light. They are coming from the south. However, they're going to change direction tonight and come out of the northwest. So that's going to contribute to our cool down. It's comfortable right now, 23 degrees here in Toronto, but bring in those patio cushions before you go to bed tonight. We are looking at some overnight wet weather, forecast low of 16 degrees. And tomorrow looks like our coolest day of the week. But again, wait until you see what's in store this weekend. Details are coming up. For now, Raheem, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Next to the rough ride for a fairgoer at the CNE, sent to hospital falling from a popular attraction.
A safety investigation underway. The Polar Express still frozen tonight. CTV's Janice Golding is at the X with more. Janice.
This social media post captures the moments after a man was seriously injured aboard the Polar Express. You can see a paramedic rush up some stairs to check on the victim, who's lying alongside the ride, his head held steady by a woman who appears to be applying a pressure dressing.
It's really unfortunate. I feel really bad. I hope the guy is okay because I don't know how injured he is.
The accident happened just before 9:30 p.m. The ride was immediately shut down, and moments later, advanced and primary care paramedics stationed at the CNE arrived, as did police, who cordoned off the area. A frightening incident that's drawing mixed reaction from fairgoers.
Would you ride the Polar Express again in the future?
Yeah, I would.
No hesitation?
No.
I'll do it again. 100%.
Been a fun ride in the past, but my friend just let me know that someone got injured on it, so I'm a little scared to go on it now.
I'll never go on it again.
Mishaps can happen here and there, but they seem to be few and far between. I'm fairly confident that things will be safe.
The CNE and North American Midway Entertainment issued this statement today saying safety is a top priority for the CNE, and the Polar Express will remain closed until the Technical Standards and Safety Authority, TSSA, and our third-party consultants can ensure the ride was not compromised. Today, the police tape is down, but security continues to monitor the popular attraction.
Upset, because I come here for this ride, actually.
To ride the Polar Express. My two cousins got wristbands specifically for it.
The victim in this case was an 18-year-old man whom paramedics took to hospital with traumatic injuries. And now that our microphone is working again, I can tell you that the Polar Express has been one of the most popular rides here at the CNE since it made its debut in 1980. However, the TSSA says it will remain shut down indefinitely as it continues its investigations. It's had people here looking at the ride and also conducting interviews today to determine exactly what happened, and they will be making a full report at some point. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. Straight ahead, beating the odds again and again. The 9-year-old Canadian girl amassing millions of supporters around the world. Her uplifting story and her life-saving procedure here in Toronto.
A new twist tonight in Ontario's Greenbelt controversy. Word from the Ford government, some of the land swapped for development was quietly listed for sale.
The Premier today, for the first time, saying he'll return those properties back to the Greenbelt if landowners don't get shovels in the ground. 133 acres of lush cornfields near the Ajax-Whitby Divide, spanning 2 addresses, was pulled from the Greenbelt late last year. The parcel of land earmarked to build homes. Yet the Premier's office is not happy to learn the sites are now for sale. A plan Doug Ford says didn't come up during all the talks to get 50,000 homes built across 15 properties. This behavior goes against everything that our government is doing to bring homeownership into reach for more people. In a statement today, the Premier says in response, our government is exploring every option available to us, including immediately starting the process to put these sites back into the Greenbelt. To the other property owners, you're on notice. If you don't meet our government's conditions, including showing real progress by year end with a plan to get shovels in the ground by 2025, your land will go back into the Greenbelt. The opposition leader says this is a distraction.
we can all be pleased that perhaps they are hearing some of the public pressure, but it's not enough. I mean, it's really just one little piece. He needs to recall the legislature immediately and cancel the whole thing.
Amid the persistent backlash from the scathing Auditor General's report prompting the resignation of the Housing Minister's Chief of Staff and continued calls for the Housing Minister to resign, Canadian environmental advocacy organization Environmental Defence contends this could be a face-saving first step for the Ford government.
It's a good opportunity to change the channel and allow the government to back out of this in a face-saving way. We would not be surprised if it is the first of a series of announcements of this nature. And you know what? We'll take it. We're not here to humiliate the government. We're here to fix a bad decision that will slow down the construction of housing, not speed it up.
Last year, the province removed 7,400 acres of land from the protected greenbelt while adding 9,400 acres to the protected land elsewhere. But earlier this month, the AG's report found the move was not necessary to get homes built, and the process was deeply flawed, favoring certain developers. The Integrity Commissioner is looking into the matter, the RCMP still working to decide whether to launch an investigation. And Housing Minister Steve Clark, who just yesterday reiterated he's not going anywhere moving forward with plans to build housing, is set to hold a news conference tomorrow morning up north regarding affordable housing funding. Well, chances are you've seen the commercials dozens or even hundreds of times. Gambling ads flush with familiar faces, enticing you to place a bet online.
While the Ontario government is dealing companies new regulations meant to protect children and youth from the negative effects of gambling.
Okay. Gretzky, what's up, baby? Come on, man. I need some tips.
Celebrity star power has propelled online gambling into a juggernaut across Ontario.
Yes!
But the gaming success has hit a glass wall.
We're banning the use of athletes, both active and retired, in internet gambling ads.
This decision by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario comes after 16 months of research. It means internet gambling companies will no longer be allowed to advertise using active or retired athletes, celebrities, entertainers, social media influencers, role models, cartoon figures, or symbols that would likely appeal to minors.
The government has finally understood that the ads work and they accentuate gambling addictions, and that's a big problem.
Between April and June this year, $14 billion worth of wagers were placed in Ontario. That was made up of 920,000 active player accounts who spent on average $197 per month.
These ads have persuaded many more people than ever thought to engage in gambling.
Single-game sports betting was legalized in Canada in 2021, but each province has been left to decide how to regulate the industry, and some feel the Ontario government is still falling short.
You're spending 4.5 times more on marketing than you are on helping addiction and the treatment for addiction that is coming out of that very thing that you're marketing.
Brian Dykema is part of a public policy think tank that is urging the government to use the revenue it generates to help those being harmed the most.
Use what is happening, buying lottery tickets, iGaming, these types of things, as a way to actually save for the future. So it's actually building up the poor rather than serving as a tax on them, which is what it's doing right now.
The advertising ban will go into effect on February 28, 2024. And the AGCO says it plans to provide more guidance on the new regulations in the coming weeks.
Next to the labor unrest showing no sign of letting up, involving workers at numerous GTA Metro stores.
Tonight, an order from a judge to those picketing outside distribution warehouses. Groups the company argues are blocking deliveries. CTV's Zoraida Allman is following the story and joins us live. Zoraida.
Raheem, picket lines have been outside of Metro's distribution center since last Wednesday, but now the company has been granted a temporary injunction. Metro says picketers outside the distribution centers have been blocking access and disrupting deliveries to stores not involved in the strike. The head of Unifor, Lana Payne, telling CP24 this afternoon that the company is back at the table, and as a show of good faith, pickets have now been dismantled at the distribution centers.
The fact that now we feel that there's some movement, we'll see if it's enough to get a deal here. If not, full speed ahead in terms of what we have to do to continue to fight for these 3,700 workers.
And those 3,700 workers have been on strike since July 29th after rejecting a tentative offer. Better wages are the main sticking point. Metro says it is committed to getting an offer on the table. Meantime, picketing continues at 27 Metro stores across the GTA. The temporary injunction expires at midnight this Friday. The union says they will continue to do what they have to get a deal. I'm Zoraida Allman. Raheem, back to you.
Thank you, Zoraida. Meanwhile, Unifor announced today which of Detroit's big three will be first up in talks on a new contract.
I've concluded that the best opportunity for our union's 18,000 members in the auto sector to achieve our bargaining objectives is with Ford Motor Company.
The union says bargaining with Ford will serve as a blueprint for workers at General Motors and Stellantis. Thousands of workers have voted in favor of calling a strike if bargaining fails. Their current contract expires on September 18th. The union is focusing on securing electric vehicle production investments. In the U.S., the UAW has not yet chosen one company to lead talks there.
In Saskatchewan, ground-penetrating radar has detected 93 areas of interest at the site of a former residential school.
In 2021, English River started the process to look for our children that did not make it home from Indian residential school. We were not sure what to expect and what we would find, but we did know the stories that were shared over generations about the treatment of these students and those students who never returned home.
It's believed 79 areas at the Beauval Indian Residential School could be the size of possible children's graves, and 14 could be the size of infants. There is a record of 52 children's deaths at the school.
The first known case of a new COVID-19 variant has been detected in Canada. The BC Centre for Disease Control says the BA 2.86 strain was identified in a person from the Fraser Health region, and they had not been outside the province recently. The infected individual is not in hospital. Provincial health officials say there does not appear to be increased severity with this Omicron strain. It was first detected in Denmark last month and has since emerged in the U.S. and several other countries.
Members of Canada's LGBTQ2+ community are being warned they may face discrimination in some places south of the border.
We have professionals in the government whose job is to look carefully around the world and to monitor whether there are particular dangers to particular groups of Canadians. That's their job, and it's the right thing to do.
Global Affairs is advising Canadians to check state laws because some policies and legislation have changed. Some states limit or ban gender-affirming medical care for minors. Some limit or prohibit teaching about sexual orientation in schools. The advisory does not mention any specific states or laws that are of concern.
In Florida tonight, people are being warned to take Hurricane Idalia seriously.
This storm is very strong and is expected to strengthen to a major hurricane by the time it makes landfall due to high surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. This means heavy winds, high winds, heavy rain, and a forecasted 12-foot storm surge in some of the areas along the western coast.
This is a look at Idalia from the International Space Station. After lashing Cuba, the storm strengthened over the Gulf of Mexico today to a Category 2 storm with 160 km/h winds. Evacuations in low-lying areas are underway, with Idalia forecast to come ashore early tomorrow as a Category 3 hurricane.
An evacuation order remains in place for Yellowknife. That's despite the nearby wildfire now classified as health. However, the multi-phase reentry plan has begun.
Phase one is the fire has to be deemed, shouldn't say safe because the fire is still there, but it's being held. Phase two is to determine if you had any loss of critical infrastructure, say, your water treatment plant burnt down or your hospital burnt down. And that didn't happen in our case, so that's good news as well. So now we're on to phase three, which means we've started calling critical staff back. So, for example, water and sewer territorial government started to call the hospital staff back. And then we're reaching out to critical businesses.
Residents will be allowed to return home in stage 5, but officials say it's not safe yet. A weekend of cooler temperatures and some rain helped firefighters battle the blaze that's 17 kilometers from the city. 20,000 people were forced to flee the capital more than a week ago.
In BC, more than 380 blazes are burning across the province right now. 12 of them are highly visible or pose a threat to public safety. A little bit of rain is forecast for some parts, but officials say it's difficult to say how much help that will be depending on the amount. Fire crews in the Shuswap region are hoping for lots of rain in their fight against the 430 square kilometer Bush Creek East blaze. It has destroyed or significantly damaged nearly 170 properties. There is big debate raging in Ottawa, and Parliament isn't even in session yet. The focus, 24 Sussex Drive.
The federal government says the historic house could end up being replaced instead of being restored. CTV's Tyler Fleming reports.
For the last 8 years, the only residents of 24 Sussex have been rodents. The asbestos-laden home is considered unlivable and in critical condition.
Bit of a fixer-upper, though, I guess.
And while construction crews began to gut the 155-year-old home, David Corrin would like to see its history preserved.
It would be good to try and keep it there.
But at a near $40 million required for the reno,
that sounds a lot.
Compounded by security experts who note the current location is vulnerable to potential attacks, it may be an option to move its location entirely.
That's the challenge, I guess, and maybe that is perhaps too difficult to overcome.
Among the areas being considered, land near the RCMP stables, as well as Rockcliffe Park, a popular and public space.
In the end, it's for the people to decide.
Consultations led by the National Capital Commission, which is in charge of the land.
It would be welcomed if the Prime Minister's residents respected the open spaces and the park-like setting.
Earlier this year, a poll revealed nearly 2/3 of Canadians believe the required renovation is not being done for fear of political fallout.
Of my list of priorities, this will probably be the last.
And it's likely the same reason the current PM lives in a cottage across the street. So it seems the door will remain open to many more years of debate on what to do with 24 Sussex. Tyler Fleming, CTV News.
She is the young Canadian girl whose story of perseverance is inspiring people all over the world. Just 9 years old, she's already waged more battles than most of us will face in a lifetime.
Every step of her journey shared on social media, including her family's gratitude for the work of specialized and skilled medical experts right here in Toronto. CTV's Allison Hurst has more.
1 week after a bowel transplant.
Are your feet sore?
No. Bella Thompson walks.
Good job, Belle.
Yay! Is this like when I took my first steps when I was only smaller?
Beating the odds and expectations yet again.
Good.
It was so good. Yeah. You felt a lot more comfortable standing and walking.
The surgery changed the 9-year-old's life, who has spent most of it in and out of hospital.
She has every right to be angry and mad at everything because of what she's been through, and she's not. She's the opposite. She goes out of her way to encourage other kiddos that she sees in hospital going through what she's going through, and she's just like so sweet and happy with her outlook on life.
Thompson spent the first 2 years of her life in hospital, born with SCID and immunodeficiency disease, dwarfism, and Hirschsprung disease.
Which is your bowel is dead, or sections of it are dead, don't work. So it's like an obstruction.
Despite the grim moments and setbacks, she has beaten the odds, overcoming roughly 30 surgeries, with this one changing her life, putting an end to food restrictions and giving her a childhood.
New bowels. What does that mean to you the most? What'd you say?
A lot.
Thompson and her mom have documented her fight on TikTok since the end of 2020, amassing a following of more than 6 million people.
We wanted to spread joy, make people laugh. That was our goal. And then for us to be able to expand on our advocacy for medical families and kids with rare disease.
It could still be 3 months to a year before they return home to Swift Current, Saskatchewan. But despite years of living in fear in hospital, Thompson's mom finds a way to stay positive.
There was always another mom or dad or caregiver that had it worse. Always. That was always right in front of me. I don't have room for negativity or complaining right now because I get my little girl's still here. And so that's kind of like my number one for staying positive.
They look forward to reuniting Thompson with her 4-year-old brother and being together as a family. Allison Hurst, CTV News.
Coming up, an incredible road to recovery after a life-changing car accident. How extensive rehab helped a woman overcome the debilitating impacts of a traumatic brain injury.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, we all know auto theft is a huge problem in the GTA, and now some insurance companies are adding surcharges on premiums if you drive a vehicle at high risk of being stolen. It could cost you another $500 a year. I'll have my report just ahead.
So we will likely add to the tally overnight tonight with wet weather in the forecast, but it looks like we're going to finish off August with rainfall below average, certainly less than last year, and far less rain than we had in July, June, and May. We've had 0 30-degree days so far in Toronto this August, and we're running out of days here. But as we look ahead to September, there are several in the forecast. We're going to talk about your long range coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
The insurance industry lost $1 billion to auto theft last year, with $700 million in losses in Ontario alone.
With no signs of theft slowing down, some insurance companies are now adding surcharges if you drive a vehicle at risk of being stolen. Pat Foran has this Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Raheem. Criminals take some vehicles because they're highly sought after overseas, but they choose others because they're easy to steal. Either way, if your car is on the list of the most stolen, your insurance premiums could be going up. Thieves seemed to casually take their time earlier this month, stealing a Lexus SUV from a driveway in Scarborough.
Alert area, please leave.
They didn't seem rattled by a security warning and even appeared calm as they cut through the steering wheel to remove a steering lock. The owner of the car is still without a replacement vehicle, and his insurance is expected to rise $2,300 a year.
We have family events coming up. I need a car, vehicle shortage, price is high, interest is high, so everything in a mess.
The Lexus RX series is number 2 on the Equite Association's recent list of most stolen vehicles. If your car is considered a high risk of being stolen, there's a chance the next time your insurance policy renews, your premiums will be going up.
In some cases, we're seeing up to $500. If your vehicle is on their list of vehicles that have been targeted or stolen a lot over recent years.
In some cases, a 35-year-old male driver in Toronto with no prior convictions with a Honda CR-V has seen a 26% increase in their comprehensive insurance over last year. Some insurance companies are providing rebates or offering to install tracking systems in vehicles at high risk of theft. However, if you don't agree to be tracked, your premiums could increase.
If you guys don't do this, we will increase your premium.
Now, before you buy a vehicle, you should check how much your insurance will be and consider cars that may be cheaper to insure.
Speak to an insurance broker or agent before you sign those papers, because you have to factor the cost of insurance into the whole cost of vehicle ownership.
And if you do get hit with a surcharge on your premiums, it may be a good time to shop around.
As a consumer, you receive your renewal in the mail and notice that you're receiving a $500 surcharge or any type of surcharge. It's definitely a great time to explore your options. There will be other options out there that won't be surcharging as heavily.
And not all companies are adding surcharges if a vehicle is at high risk of being stolen, but it's likely more will. The industry is also calling on manufacturers to do more to prevent vehicles from being stolen in the first place. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, hopefully you've been enjoying this Tuesday. The weather has sure cooperated, and we do have some unsettled stuff coming, but there's a lot of good this week in the forecast.
There's a lot of good, and it's a nice way to end August, Lindsay.
It's a nice way to end August, and I think some will agree that it's a nice way to start September. Wait until you see what's in store. This is, of course, if you like heat, humidity, and 30-degree temperatures. We've got all of the above in the forecast in the long range, but ahead of that, yes, some wet weather, and tomorrow a bit of a chilly day. Yeah, I'm going to go with chilly because especially overnight into Thursday morning, our temperature could drop into the single digits. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Now, before we talk about our local weather, here is Hurricane Idalia in all its glory, visible on the radar. The outer bands soaking parts of Florida today. There was some flooding in the Tampa area already as a result of that rain, the storm surge, and high tide. So here's what's going to happen as we make our way through the night tonight and into tomorrow morning. A landfall is expected, perhaps as a Category 2 or 3 hurricane. This is going to impact somewhere between the Florida Panhandle and the Big Bend. Eventually, this is going to make its way up the U.S. eastern seaboard, but really not impacting us. There's an area of high pressure that's going to stop that from happening. But again, we're going to pay close attention to Hurricane Idalia. Meanwhile, Hurricane Franklin continues to look most impressive on radar, but not expected to impact land by any means in a big way. Some impacts for Bermuda or the coast of the United States with some riptides. So that's about it. And then it's going to become a low. Here's a look at our disturbance. So this moves through tonight. Timing wise, you can expect late evening, overnight, maybe some leftover showers into tomorrow morning. There's about 10 p.m. That's the midnight hour. And then waking up tomorrow, if we don't have showers, it looks like we're going to have cloud. That is going to clear as the afternoon goes on. And then Thursday, we're back into the sunshine. Lots of nice weather in store for the end of this work week. We're at 23 degrees here currently. Forecast overnight low is 16. Into tomorrow, this is a cool day. 20 is our forecast high. It's possible here in Toronto we might not even climb out of the teens, but look what's in store as we head into the weekend. 28 degrees for Saturday, possibly 30 for Sunday. 31 degrees for your Labor Day Monday. And as many kids head back to school on Tuesday, it could be feeling like 39. That's your look at the weather for now. Raheem, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, set free with their very long lives ahead of them. Thousands of endangered turtles released, given a new chance at life.
It's a condition that can present itself after a stroke, brain injury, MS, or something else. And spasticity can be debilitating.
But a Canadian woman is proving there is hope, aiming to inspire with her story of purpose. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has more.
I had a seat belt, but, took a full force on the windshield and it caused a traumatic brain injury.
In a split second, a car accident changed Jen Sharinga's life completely. Now 34, she spent the past 10 years relearning how to swallow, how to sit, and along the way, how to manage the debilitating spasticity that affects her body.
So spasticity is, by definition, a velocity-dependent increase in muscle tone, meaning you have to move the limb through a quick movement in order to detect it.
Here, Jen is getting assessed because that extreme muscle tension from spasticity often changes and can cause pain as well as immobility.
The toughest one was in her hip. So this right hip, spasticity actually caused to dislocate. So it's hard to dislocate a hip.
But treatment at West Park Rehab with botulinum type A has improved her spasticity so much she's even been able to learn how to pedal a recumbent bicycle.
And once the medication is injected, it's taken up by the end of the nerve, and it prevents essentially the nerve from speaking to a muscle temporarily for approximately 3 to 4 months duration.
Now the Sharingas are planning to do the famous Camino de Santiago trail.
The family is leaving for Spain on September 16th, and they'll be bringing a team of about 15 people to help them.
She'll be in a jogger and the recumbent bike. So between those two, we'll do about 10 to 12 kilometers a day.
Dr. Farouk Ismail says Jen's achievements are clearly a credit to her own energy and drive, but he hopes her story will encourage others to consider the potential benefits of botulinum in treating various forms of spasticity, which affects over 350,000 Canadians. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
John Herdman never thought he would leave Canada's national team, but today he was formally introduced as the new head coach of Toronto FC.
There's moments that'll come in your career where an opportunity comes up and it seems to hit the bullseye with, everything that you align to and what motivates you and drives you. And this was that opportunity.
The 48-year-old Englishman starts his new job on October 1st. Herdman joins a last-place club, but plans to evaluate the team and build a winning culture. Herdman stepped down as bench boss for the national team to come to Toronto.
The puck drops in January. New details tonight about the inaugural season of the Professional Women's Hockey League.
The journey to get us here has been long. It's been twisted. It's been empowering, but I'm not sure success comes in a straight line. So I think we're all excited today to move forward together. And as I said, we had a call last night with all the players, and we are committed to this movement and this time for our sport.
Toronto will be one of 3 teams in Canada, along with Montreal and Ottawa. The 3 others are in the U.S. The schedule has not been released yet, but each club will play 24 regular season games. Training camps open in November. To New York, where it has been another tough day for Canada at the U.S. Open.
An absolute fight to the finish.
Leylah Fernandez dropped her first-round match to Russia's Ekaterina Alexandrova in just over 3 hours. The Laval, Quebec native made it to the final at Flushing Meadows 2 years ago. Fernandez entered this year's tournament ranked 67th in the world.
And Vancouver's Rebecca Marino is also out. She fell to Romania's Patricia Tig today in first-round action. Fellow Canadians Felix Auger-Aliassime and Milos Raonic were both ousted yesterday. There are no longer any Canadians left in singles play at the last major of the year.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
We will not tolerate criminal actions by those who prey on vulnerable individuals in our communities.
Updating our top stories, Peel police say Kenneth Law is now facing 12 additional charges of counseling or aiding suicide. The Mississauga man accused of selling dangerous materials to those at risk of self-harm. An investigation into Law is also underway in the UK, where British police have linked 88 deaths to items purchased from Law's websites.
After a full year of bargaining without sufficient progress, ETFA was proceeding with an application for conciliation.
The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario wants a third party to assist with reaching an agreement between the union and the province. ETFO has applied for conciliation, which would see a mediator brought into the ongoing discussions. The union plans to hold strike votes in mid-September and October if a deal is not reached.
This has never been about housing. It was never about housing, and it's only ever been about enriching a few very well-connected, ultra-wealthy developers.
Premier Doug Ford says he is considering placing 2 properties in Ajax back into the Greenbelt after learning developers listed the properties for sale. In a statement, Ford warned other developers that they must show progress on building affordable housing or risk having their land returned to the Greenbelt.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar gaining 22 points to 73.75 U.S. American benchmark oil trading higher by $1.06 to 81.16 a barrel. And the TSX Composite Index climbing 265 points, closing at 20,290.
It is the culmination of months of work by a special team of wildlife experts in London. After saving, incubating, and hatching thousands of endangered turtles, today is the moment to send them into the wild. CTV's Brent Leo has the story.
Bye-bye.
You know, this is kind of the grand finale of all the work we've done this year.
The at-risk species team at the Upper Thames Conservation Authority has been working for 2 months to save, incubate, hatch, and now release thousands of turtles.
Been able to hatch out close to 10,000 young turtles, and we're able to put them back into the environment. So it's always exciting for myself, for the crew, to be able to kind of see this thing full circle.
2 months ago, teams began collecting eggs from the wild. They brought them to their lab for protection from predators, flooding, and other issues.
So he might just explode his head out. We'll see what happens.
All these guys, once they hatch out, they'll go into bins with water and vegetation. That just keeps them calm.
Record all the data from the hatchlings. The spiny softshell turtle is endangered, so we actually weigh and measure those ones as well. We input it into our computer, so for future years we can see the progress that we've made with.
Then it's time to say goodbye.
Every single turtle that hatches, you talk to. You're like, oh, hey, little guy. And just when you go to release, you also sort of talk to them and just hope that you've been with them the whole way from when they were put into the ground to when they go back out. So it's definitely special, the whole period.
Scott Gillingwater still feels the same way after seeing this cycle with turtles and snakes for the past 30 years. Now that they've got them past the most dangerous stage, it's a long journey ahead.
Now they're on their own. It may take 12 to 15 years to reach maturity, so we wish them luck. Maybe only 1 to 10% will survive. So if we put enough into the environment, we'll ensure that some reach maturity and can reproduce long into the future.
Brent Lale, CTV News.
Tonight, we're taking a closer look at Ontario's ban on athletes and celebrities in online gambling ads.
I think this will provide greater protections.
It's a move aimed at reducing the risk for young people, but is a full-out ban next? Later on CTV National News.
Well, we'd love to say we're just going to sail through this week weather-wise, but that's not exactly the case. There is some wet weather tonight.
There is. It's hard to believe when you look outside and enjoy a view like that, but it's true. We'll take one more look at the satellite and radar. This front is going to take its time getting to us here in the GTA, but there is lightning associated with it, and of course, wet weather. That will impact us late evening, overnight, and possibly tomorrow morning. It's going to be a mostly cloudy start to the day tomorrow, and then we're below seasonal. Daytime high of 20. Average daytime high this time of year is about 24, but don't worry, we are going to soar well above seasonal as we make our way into the long weekend. Slight chance of a shower or maybe some cloud on Saturday. Otherwise, lots of sun. Raheem and Michelle.
Sure looks like it. Thank you, Lindsay. And be sure to join Vashi Capellos tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.